Well, joining me now is the Shadow Foreign Secretary David Lammy. Mr. Lammy, good morning to you, and thank you so much for talking to us. Let's start with what Joe Biden said last night. What do you make of what he said?
Well, across NATO, we have the strongest intelligence capability in the world, and it's clear that troops are in a forward posture, a forward maneuver. They've increased substantially since the 100,000 troops that we were talking about just a few weeks ago, and all of the intelligence says that they are very close to being able to act. So the international community has to remain resolved, united and firm that this could happen, and that any consequences of invasion will be met with great severity in terms of sanctions.
And just sanctions, do you think?
Well, it's absolutely clear that there will not be boots on the ground, but of course we support Ukraine in its quest for its own sovereignty and its own territorial integrity. And so it means that as leaders gather in Munich to confer, they're absolutely clear that we will have to hurt very hard the plutocrats that support Putin, cut them out of the finance of the international community, make it impossible for them to get their hands on the semiconductors that support their military equipment, and ensure that we apply pressure on Russian banks as well. That is the sort of severe consequence that will follow.
And do you think that would actually be enough, though?
Well, clearly, it would cause great damage to the Russian economy, and we hope that those around Putin will get him to pause, because clearly we're talking about a country where there are a lot of people who make a lot of money, too much money in cities like London, and that's why Labour's been raising real issues about implementing the Russia report and around the dirty money that effectively uses London as a laundromat. For all of those reasons, we should remember that it's going after the cash that applies the pressure that might bring this to an end.
Because there is the argument that it's gone beyond that now, and it's gone beyond Putin just having to keep those oligarchs happy, and he doesn't really need them anymore.
No one knows what's in Putin's mind. He's now been in power for over 20 years. And clearly, ultimately, this is a decision for him. And there is concern that, if you like, that he's an echo chamber, unable to hear calmer voices that do exist in the Kremlin. But nevertheless, in the end, the West has to act with force. But yes, we know that we cannot commit troops on the ground in Ukraine.
I don't know if you heard what Tobias Ellwood has been saying to us here at Sky News a couple of days ago. He was saying that NATO blinked. We should have had boots on the ground before we got to this point.
I mean, my own assessment is that NATO isn't, that Ukraine is not within the NATO family, that we have to be clear about what it means to be in NATO. And in the end, NATO is not an aggressive force, it is a defensive force. That's the first thing. And I think it would be wrong to break with that. The second thing is, when I was in Kiev, talking right across society, no one was saying at that time, look, please commit troops. What they were saying is, thank you for the training that you've given our military. There's more equipment that we need to deal with Putin in the event of an incursion or an invasion. And of course, Western community and NATO allies are supporting Ukraine in that endeavour, and have actually been for several years.
Given the fact that we've seen these nuclear drills brought forward to today, military drills taking place in Belarus, and the fact that, as you said, we are seeing more troops coming to the border, helicopters, field hospitals, what do you make of Boris Johnson going to the Munich conference today and saying diplomacy can still prevail? Do you think that's true?
Well, look, of course we must fight for diplomacy right up to the last moment. So, of course, we hope that it can prevail. But look, let's be clear. Belarus and Lukashenko, very close to Vladimir Putin. The area of Transnistria in Moldova, also under his auspices. That's why we've also had to withdraw our own or instruct our nationals to leave those countries, to be cautious, and embassy staff as well. And for all of those reasons, it's that encirclement, if you like, of Ukraine, and certainly that ability to move towards Kiev that makes the international community very, very cautious of anything that's coming out of Russia, and very aware that military action could follow in the coming hours and days.
Okay. Mr. Lammy, thank you so much for talking to us. Mr. Lammy is the Shadow Foreign Secretary.
Thank you.